Hello and welcome back to another Giant Slayer TFT ranked meta video. Our analysts are here to go through the 10.9 meta for each stage of the game. This patch is developed into one of the most diverse metas with several different playstyles, all of which will be broken down in this video. Let's jump on in, beginning with the early game. But before we begin, please don't forget to click the links in our description. Give your support to everyone who helped make this video happen. We host many TFT tournaments with plenty of exciting content to come, so be sure to also follow our Giant Slayer TFT social media pages. Alright folks, let's get back into the video, and as mentioned, we're starting off with the early game by going over items. Components remain quite varied in 10.9, but there are a few standout exceptions. For the beginning carousel, look to grab either Chain Vest or Glove, as both components make into several items that are doing well in the current meta. Chain Vest makes into two of the best defensive items, Bramble Vest and Guardian Angel. Bramble Vest in particular is useful at every stage of the game to help your frontline survive longer. Guardian Angel remains one of the best items for important champions like your carry or a champion with an ultimate you want to guarantee cast, such as Gangplank. Chain Vest also makes into Red Buff, which is one of the stronger damage and utility items in the meta, as blasters are commonly played. Glove makes into the best physical damage item, Last Whisper. It's also used to make Infinity Edge, which is generally paired with Last Whisper, as the two items complement one another. Glove can also be made into Trap Claw and Quicksilver, both of which are viable defensive items. Quicksilver was nerfed, but it's still a core item for any champion that has a long casting time, such as MF, or a carry champion that wants an auto attack uninterrupted, such as Xayah. The other benefit of both Trap Claw and Quicksilver is the 20% dodge chance that they provide. Every other component is viable in some way, as each can be used to make something useful. Tear, for example, is necessary for one of the strongest playstyles of the meta, known as the Mana Printer. With 2 Chalice of Favors and 1 Seraphs on a Sona, it causes her to cast her ability constantly, which in turn provides mana for nearby champions. Due to this playstyle, Tear is a highly valuable early game item if you wish to pursue compositions that use the Mana Printer, but keep in mind it's difficult to procure the number of tiers necessary. Overall, when it comes to items, your best option is to play what's available to you early on in the game, as holding on to too many components can lose you rounds, and health is a valuable resource. A good rule of thumb is to always make at least one item if you start with 4 components after the early PvE rounds. Let's move on now and talk about early game champions and traits. Early on, your goal is to always play what you hit. 2-star champions usually provide more value than trying to play specific champions or traits. Don't pass up a pair early on just because it isn't exactly what you're looking for, as being stuck with all 1-star units will often result in several lost rounds. That said, there are a few specific champions to look out for. Poppy and Leona are fantastic early game after the buffs to 2 Vanguard. They are extremely tanky, especially if you give one of them a Bramble Vest. But a good counter to early Vanguards is either magic damage such as Ziggs and Twisted Fate, or picking up Xayah and giving her a Last Whisper. Twisted Fate and Xayah in particular are great early game item holders, as well as viable carries and hyper roll compositions. Lucian with Cybernetic and Blaster is still one of the strongest early game, especially when he's given carry items and a red buff. Graves does well in conjunction with Lucian and is overall fantastic all game due to the utility his ability provides. Alongside Graves, you can play Darius, which will give you Space Pirates, another strong early game trait, as it can get you extra gold. The last section to talk about for the early game is leveling and economy. Your main goal early game is to work towards building your economy, upgrading your board when available, and keeping your health high. A good way to do that is to aim to win streak, as that earns you the most amount of gold throughout stage 2 and keeps you healthy. This can be luck based, as you're not guaranteed to find upgrades to champions, but if you have a strong enough board, you can push your advantage by leveling aggressively. Look to level at 2-2, 2-5, and again on 3-2 to quickly get to level 4, 5, and 6 respectively. This is advised as well if you're not win streaking, but it depends on the leveling curve of your lobby. If multiple players are leveling, then it's generally best to match that, as getting behind on the curve can result in really bad losses. Leveling does also have the added benefit of increasing your odds of finding higher cost champions, particularly 4-cost champions. Generally, not leveling is reserved for hyper rolling compositions. To do this, you simply do not level and look to pick up relevant champions from whichever build you're aiming for, such as Poppy and Candyland. Build up your economy as much as you can and roll down on 3-1, looking to 3-star 1-cost champions for your build. Stop around 10 gold to preserve your economy, or earlier if you hit a 3-star. At the end of the early game, if you didn't hyper roll, you still want to be level 6 around 3-2. Scout on Krugs and each round after to get an idea of what other players are doing, as you can get an idea of what they are going for based on when they level, what items they have, and what champions are on their board and bench. Moving along, we're into the mid-game, which will go over other leveling times and common playstyles and compositions associated with them. For leveling in the mid-game, the standard timings are level 6 on 3-2, level 7 on 4-1, and level 8 on 5-1. These are just typical level timings, but are by no means a hard, fast rule for when you're going to level. It also highly depends on what playstyle you're going for. We've gone over hyper rolling, which rolls on 3-1 and naturally levels to 5 on 3-2. But after that point, this style of play will usually stay on level 5 until 4-1. At that point, you can either roll down again about to 20 gold or slow roll if you're close to several 3 stars. After that, you will level when you can. An example of a hyper roll build is Candyland. The core champions are Poppy, Twisted Fate, Leona, and Zoe. Your goal is a 3-star at least Poppy and Twisted Fate. Look to give Poppy Bramble Vest, Death Cap, and Dragon's Claw, while Twisted Fate needs Morella Nomicon. Seraphs or Shojin are also good options for Twisted Fate. Once you've hit Poppy 3 and Twisted Fate 3, you'll level and look to play either 4 Vanguard, 4 Sorcerer, or some mix of those. A variation of Candyland will add in Sona with Mana Printer items, which also makes adding Mystic and Star Guardian much easier by putting in Soraka at level 6. Slow roll builds are still doing well in the meta, and the timing for those depends on the build that you're running, but most of them roll on either level 6 or level 7. Slow rolling is simply getting to 50 gold and rolling the excess gold to find 3-star upgrades for 2 and 3 cost champions. You're going to stay on that level until you 3-star the core champions for the build, and only after that do you begin looking to level. An example of a slow roll composition is Mech Infiltrator. The build will slow roll at level 6 with the core champions being Annie, Rumble, and Fizz for the mech pilots, with Kaisa as the main carry and second infiltrator. Commonly, you'll run Kha'Zix and Shaco with this for 4 infiltrator, and later add in a second Valkyrie and Sorcerer. Look to slow roll for Annie, Rumble, and Kaisa, as your goal is to 3-star all of them. Items for the Super Mech are primarily defensive items, with Bramble Vest being one of the best. You can also stack dodge items on it with Quicksilver and another glove item like Shroud of Stillness. Kaisa works best with Seraphs and Morella Nomicon, and her most important item is Demolitionist Charge. This makes it so she can stun each time she casts, which is extremely important for the late game for Mech Infiltrator. Next, there's the standard style of play, which uses the normal leveling times and rolling on level 7 to stabilize. Typically, you're looking for one of your 4-cost carries and filling in the rest of the composition for the necessary traits. After that, you'll look to go to level 8 around 5-1, though it can be done later if needed, and after that, you'll roll again to finish finding upgrades. An example of a standard leveling build is Jinx Carry. This will generally be Brawler Blaster, with the champions being all 4 Brawlers and any of the Blasters alongside of Jinx. Your goal on 7 is to find at least 1 Jinx and upgrades to your frontline Brawlers. From there, you can level to 8 and find Jinx 2 and add in a 4th Blaster. Jinx is flexible when it comes to items, but strong options to look for are Last Whisper, Infinity Edge, Giant Slayer, Red Buff, and either Trap Claw or Quicksilver. The last playstyle in the mid-game is going for a fast 8. This is risky to do and is generally reserved for players who have been mostly win streaking throughout the game, but the goal is to level to 8 on 4-3 and have access to legendary champions and a higher chance of finding 4-cost champions before any other players in the lobby. Jinx Carry is also a good example for a fast 8 in a Rebel composition. She remains the core champion, with Aurelion Sol, Gangplank, and Miss Fortune being the legendaries that you want to find when going fast 8. Besides those, you'll want to round out the rest of the build with 6 Rebel. Ziggs is great as he provides Demolitionist for Gangplank, and Sona is good as Lulu is common to add in at level 9. Itemizing Jinx is the same as in Brawler Blaster. Gangplank needs at least Guardian Angel, and Miss Fortune works best with Quicksilver to guarantee her ultimate goes off for the full duration. Mercenary upgrades are extremely important for both Gangplank and Miss Fortune, so pick those up when available. Alright, that's a look into the different mid-game play styles and a few compositions as examples. There's many builds that you can play right now, including Xayah Carry, Kale Carry, Cybernetics, multiple mana printer builds like Void Brawler, and even Darkstar is still good if you high roll. But it's now time for the last stage of the game, the late game. The late game is a bit after Raptors, usually as the game is moving into stage 6 and players are looking to level 9. Generally, you'll add in a splash trait late game such as Celestial or Mystic. Lulu and Thresh are fantastic legendary champions to add in, as their abilities are quite useful and they have great traits. Otherwise, your goal is to finish upgrading your 5-cost champions and look to 3-star a 4-cost champion. Leveling to 9 is the main goal late game, but it depends on your health and economy. If you're high health, meaning above 50, and are either win streak streaking or winning most rounds, you can look to level to 9 either slowly or the round after Kane. If you're either losing multiple rounds or not high enough health, then you need to roll on level 8 to stabilize. It may even be necessary to all in your gold at level 8 if you're below 30 health and play for just a top 4. Hyper roll and slow roll compositions have different timings late game, but basically your goal is to level to at least 8 to fill in the rest of your build. The same rules for going level 9 apply here, but the timings will not be the same, so level when you can at your own discretion. Overall, the late game is less about economy and more about positioning and scouting. Always scout each round in the late game and position your board as needed. Always move your carries from the obvious threats. Don't get caught off guard by things like Zephyr, Shroud of Stillness, Infiltrators, and Blitzcrank. Before we send you on your way, let's quickly talk about Galaxies. We'll touch a few of the Galaxies that are relevant to the meta. First is Treasure Trove. This Galaxy has been quite fun with the increased items, but overall it mainly helps item-dependent compositions such as Mana Printer Sona. Other than that, make sure you don't hold on to items too long, as being greedy will result in losing rounds. Star Cluster is another new Galaxy in 10.9, and overall it mainly increases the pace of the game as boards are stronger in Stage 2 than they normally are. It can be worse for hyper roll builds due to that, so keep it in mind. Trade Sector is one of the best in the current meta as it's quite good for hyper roll builds. It's also a good idea to level aggressively if you aren't hyper rolling, as you get 2 free shops each round, which increases your chance of finding higher cost champions. Opposite to the Trade Sector, Nicoverse is worse for hyper roll builds, as most players use Nico on 4 and 5 cost champions, which can end up outscaling hyper roll builds. Lastly, Super Dense Galaxy is also not great for hyper roll builds due to most players leveling aggressively to get their free Force of Nature early. This can result in a lot of extra damage taken to players that aren't leveling. Alright folks, that's going to be it for today's video. We hope this breakdown of the ranked meta will help you climb in the last few days before the new patch arrives. Let us know in the comment section below how your ranked climb is going and what you're looking forward to in patch 10.10. Thank you for watching, and if you're enjoying our content, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button for future Giant Slayer TFT videos.